Every gold miner knows that. You're gonna need to become intimate with the dirt to go find the diamonds and the gold. Your golden shadow wants to be found. Your repressed light wants to be expressed. There is a divine intelligence at work within your psyche that is pointing the way towards that day in and day out. The brighter the light, the deeper the shadows that it casts. This is physics. It is absolutely not personal. Welcome back to another episode of Enheartened. And this time, we're going to be talking about a few things that I find tremendously potent for these times. We're going to be talking about integration. We're going to be talking about the golden shadow, which is the light we often keep in the dark. And we're going to be talking about what it looks like to shift the relationship with your own golden shadow so that you may get to this place where you express it more boldly, more courageously, maybe even more outrageously. That's the intention of the conversation of today. And I'm inviting you to buckle up because I think it might reveal so many things that you haven't maybe allowed yourself to see within yourself for quite a while. So, the first thing I want to say is some of our most radiant gifts live in the shadow, which is the storehouse of all the things that we've learned to repress about ourselves, all the parts that we like the least. So it's not just pain and darkness, that we keep in there. Sometimes we also have a lot of gifts that live in the shadow. And many, many gifts. Many people think that they are aware of what their light is. And I often say, think again, because so much of our brightness hides in our unconscious. And part of the journey of becoming aware is to realize all the ways life itself wants to reflect to us our repressed brightness. And this is what we're going to be talking about today. And by the end of this episode, something that you're going to be able to do is to really come face to face with what your own repressed light is and what is the divine and golden invitation that it requires of you to be more embodied so that you can become more intimate with it, so that you no longer operate from a place where you fear your own brightness, or more accurately said, the potential consequences that may come from the expression of that brightness. Because many people, they don't repress their light because they don't want it. They repress it because deep down in their cellular memories, they feel that expressing it will cause them to get burned to a certain degree. And that is the cellular story that needs to be undone. And that's part of what we're going to be exploring. So, the first thing I want to mention is an experience that I think is very, very common for many people. And I'm going to name it this way. When pain festers, pain that we don't know how to resolve and that we repress in a shadow. So when pain festers, it usually turns into suffering. Might turn into a form of like deepened shame, or it's really deep fracture. It really turns into suffering. And I've asked myself the question for a long time, what happens when life festers? When light rots? Because we've pushed it in the shadow. And because we've wrapped our light or brightness with fear and inadequacy or unworthiness. And the thought of claiming your light is inevitably going to bring you face to face with all these insecurities. But because we don't want to face these insecurities, we repress that brightness deep down into our shadow. So what happens when that brightness festers is it turns into a form of existential grief. And this is what I've noticed from working with hundreds and hundreds of people that are usually in a very anxious relationship with their own brightness. There's a form of existential grief. In every now moment, we operate from this knowingness. There is more within me that wants to be expressed, but that I don't trust myself to bring forth. And all the reasons we have, they make sense. All the evidence we have from the past that it's not necessarily safe to bring that forth, it kind of makes sense. Yes, sure. But at the same time, there's a part of you that says, I am. I hope and I pray you will no longer use these stories, and many of them valid again, as a reason why you will repress me, says your light. So there's often that existential grief that I've seen in many people. And the missing link is not a glorified pep talk that is going to take you out of the repression of your light. It is not some sort of like, I don't know, more strategic ways to show up on social media, to post online, or no. It's usually more integrative work. And what I mean by integrative work, it is an act of radical intimacy. It's a descension into your own body, into your own being. It's an act of radical reclamation of the parts of you that have been afraid to shine out loud. And these aspects of you have a story to tell. And usually their fears represent a love letter that is just inverted. And sometimes we don't really understand the deep conversation going on there because we get spooked. We get spooked by the projection of pain that we have around our own brightness. And the invitation is to come a little closer. Integration is really an act of radical intimacy with all aspects of yourself. Without integration, your brightness just remains an idea of a potential. It just remains that thing that could have been, or that thing that could be. But it has a hard time being grounded cellularly. It has a hard time being embodied. And integration really is the bridge between understanding, between perception, between inspiration and becoming. It is a missing bridge. So it's not going to be another mindset boost. It's not necessarily going into a retreat where you're going to feel fired up because there were so many exciting people and so many exciting stories that you heard. Your light is going to require that you sit at the altar of all the fears that you have wrapped around it and that you start peeling the layers, so that the gold that has been mixed with quite a bit of dirt. That's why I like the metaphor of the golden shadow. It's a little bit of the metaphor of like gold mixed with shit. It's like that gold is in the ground. Every gold miner knows that you're gonna need to become intimate with the dirt to go find the diamonds and the gold. And your light is no different. It is no different, because if you don't do that, what you happen to do is just a match that burns extremely fast, and it burns out. It burns out. It's not sustainable fire. And I've experienced it within myself so many times. Usually people will go through cycles of like expansion and shining and burnout, expansion, contraction. It's like you give yourself permission to, just like a match, you turn on, boom, and then you burn out. And that's because that's what unintegrated light does. It burns quick, it burns fast, and then it burns out. And I think these times are asking of us to have a very much different relationship with our brightness. So the main driving idea that I want to share, that I would love for you to internalize, is embracing your light is going to require a detour in the shadow, and that is appropriate. It is not a disconfirming of, the path. It is just appropriate. The brighter the light, the deeper the shadows that it casts. It's just physics. It's not personal. This is physics. It is absolutely not personal. So the challenges that you've been encountering with your own brightness, that is just part of the physics of human consciousness. It is absolutely not personal. And your story matters. What you've gone through matters. But it's absolutely impersonal as well. So it's the balance of like impersonal and personal. So let's anchor that as a way to kind of demystify a little bit what might be happening within yourself, even the self-sabotaging. Even the things that you often see and you're like, why do I still do that? Why do I still sabotage? Why do I, shy away from sharing the things that I know I should share and that I want to share? There needs to be a de-shaming of how you've related to your desires, to your brightness, to your gifts. Because if you allow your inner critic, your spiritualized inner critic, the part that tells you, oh, you should do this, you should do that, you haven't done this, you haven't done that, therefore you're not worthy of expressing your brightness. If you allow that part of you to be in charge of your relationship with your light is going to become another tyrant. And so many people are already relating to the gifts from that place. They are seeing the gifts as this other form of tyranny that they, or maybe internalized tyranny that they have to work with. You know, it's like the expectation that we project onto what it looks like to embrace our gifts and our brightness, they sometimes feel oppressive because some of these expectations might also even be dehumanizing. Like, you should do this, you should do that, you should, like, so many shoulds. And one good question that I would even want to offer to you is this one. The shoulds that I have put around the expression of my brightness are, what are these shoulds? I should, I don't know, meditate 20 times a day, or I should write 2,000 words a day, I should post, I don't know. What are the shoulds? What are the shoulds? Oh, I should have done already this, I should have done already that, and since I haven't done any of that yet, therefore, it's almost like a virus. It's a Trojan horse. You know, it's like, if I was, I often say this to myself, if I was the devil and I really wanted to make sure that people wouldn't shine their light, I would make sure to implant thought forms that would criticize them for not being bright enough. That's what I would do. I would do something along those lines. Like, you are not a good devotee of your light yet. You're not doing the right thing. You're not showing up as you should be showing up. You're not doing this. I would shame them for all the ways they are not being good. And use their goodness as a new tyrant. And I think it works pretty well. So there needs to be an act of divine rebellion to a certain degree, where you kind of refuse to have your light be the next instrument of this the old and ancient inner tyranny. So I'd love for you to let me know in the comments of this video how you're relating to this. I would love to hear your thoughts and what is emerging for you as you hear all of that. Because I don't think your light wants to be, your gifts want to be the reason why you will like yourself less. And many of us, we've turned them into that. We've turned them into that. So, yeah. So I wanna give some clarification about the golden shadow before we move further. And also I want to offer to you how you can begin to clarify, identify what your golden shadow is to even begin with. A simple way to define the golden shadow is the light you've learned to fear, to push in the dark. It's the version of you that is fully alive, fully expressed. Maybe the artist or the innovator within you, the part of you that is magnetic, the part of you that is in touch with what really turns your light on, turns your aliveness on. And I often talk about the golden shadow as the first form of self-abandonment. And if you even pay attention to the human journey, if you are agreeing with the thought form that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, the simple fact of incarnating on earth as a spiritual being who decided to leave behind their full brightness, the soul's brightness, is a form of like designed self-abandonment. You know, we kind of we forget a little bit our full essence to incarnate here as human beings. And even in our journey, you know, when after you incarnate, when you're a child, you have this innate way of just expressing your aliveness. The version of you that is not yet conditioned is usually more fully expressed. And we learn to tame our aliveness a lot later through our conditioning. We learn to tame it. So I like to think of the repression of our light as the first form of self-abandonment, and maybe even the only form of self-abandonment. And all other forms of self-abandonment are just ramifications of that. So in a way, we are learning to undo abandoning our brightness. And the more we are able to learn how to reconcile with our brightness, the more we can actually dissolve all other forms of self-abandonment. That's just my wild theory. And so far, it has made sense for me. So far, I've seen it become more and more true, you know. And it's a concept that I like living by. And again, let me know in the comments of this, wherever you're going to be tuning into this, whether it's on Spotify or a podcast platform or on YouTube. Let me know what you're thinking about all of that. So, so many of the reasons why we repress our light, sometimes family systems, like not to outshine anybody, not to outshine your siblings eventually. Some people have that as an imprint, and we often equate allowing ourselves to shine bright as pride. And in some cultural or even religious messagings, pride is sin. So for many people, they have this kind of internalized emotional injury that sounds a lot like, every time I was visible, I was punished. I was rejected. I was ridiculed. I was alienated, or I got hurt in any way, other way, shape, or form. So a good prompt that you could actually work with here would be to complete this sentence as intuitively, spontaneously as you can. If I fully stepped into my power, my expression, or brilliance, what I fear might happen is. And let me know what comes up for you. If I fully stepped into my power, my expression, or my brilliance, what I fear might happen is. Just complete that sentence in the most intuitive way you can. Another one would be, who or what taught me that being fully myself was dangerous is. Who or what taught me that being fully myself was dangerous is. Just pay attention. This is how you're going to become aware of the pain and the fears that are wrapped around your brightness. And again, the intention here is not to go ahead and blame anybody or to, to resent anybody necessary. It is just a way to become aware of the story at play, or the narrative at play, or the imprint that is hijacking your brightness. And with that being said, let's let's lean into the question of self-sabotage to a certain degree. I often say many people are not afraid of their light. I often hear people say, "Oh, my power scares me, but my brightness scares me," and I'm just like, really, really? Your power is who you are. Your brightness is your essence. That's what you crave. That's what you want to return to. It's important to understand that your light per se, your brightness per se, does not scare you. What scares you is, the possibility of experiencing the pain that you attach to your brightness before, that you haven't found ways to resolve yet. So your nervous system is still rattled every time you even ponder the thought of unleashing yourself in the ways you know you need to. So that's really what is scary. Your brightness itself is not. It is not. And one could even say that, and this is me extrapolating a little bit. I often like to say that there is such a thing as an encoded healthy fear around our brightness. Because sometimes when we get too close as our human selves, we might get afraid that this is it. Maybe I'm returning to soul, and I came here for a purpose of being human. So that maybe there's a built-in fear there that if I allow myself to fully merge with my soul right now, it's going to be the end of the human, because this humanness cannot possibly hold the intensity of the light of the soul to the fullest extent. So maybe there is some deep down encoded fear at that level. But for most people, when they say they are afraid of their light, they are mostly meaning I'm afraid of what it's going to cost me. I'm afraid of what comes with it. I'm afraid of the challenges. I feel suffocated by the responsibilities. So let's just say that again. Your light doesn't really scare you. It is your essence. Let's demystify that. And let's even maybe put to rest that saying that your light scares me. And maybe try to check in with the thought form, my light excites me, and see how it sits in your body. See how your body wants to respond to that thought form. And I would invite you to do it now out loud. It is safe for me to be excited by my brightness. It is safe for me to be enthused and to feel more alive by the thought of shining my light. And notice what tenses up within you. Whatever gets illuminated there, that's where the work is needed. That's where the work is needed. So let's talk about self-sabotage and why it is so common when we come close to the thought, to the possibility of expressing our brightness. So first of all, it is not a flaw. We all have a version of it that we deal with. The saboteur within us is an archetype, and it is one of the most powerful archetypes when it comes to the expression of your fullness. It is a survival strategy. And I like to think of self-sabotage as an inverted love letter from your fearful self. Like an inverted love letter from the part of you that is just like, are you really sure you really want to do it? And that part of you is sometimes so attuned to your personal history, so attuned to the fears that you have attached to your brightness. So when procrastination around launching a project comes, or dimming your message online comes, or staying in a relationship where you feel like you have to stay small, or whatever other form of self-sabotage that feels really common for you, when all of that comes, again, if we latch onto the self-sabotaging patterns with the awareness of the critic within us that is just saying, see all the ways you're like a piece of shit, all the ways you're inconsistent with your brightness, all the ways you're doing this, all the ways you're doing that. And that doesn't really go anywhere, does it? I don't know about you, but it hasn't done much for me. It hasn't done much for me. Usually it hardens me instead of allowing me to open up even more. So there is a necessity there to, again, even de-shame self-sabotaging patterns, or what they appear, at the very least, from a surface level. They appear like something within you going against you, whereas it is a scream for more integration. And again, integration here is the name of the game. So consciously, a part of you might say, I want this. I want to express my brightness. I want to do this. I want to do that. And a part of you that is not being acknowledged fully internally might be saying, well, this will cause you to come close to a pain that you haven't allowed yourself to resolve yet. And therefore, there's sometimes going to be an avoidance mechanism. From the get-go, from the surface level, self-sabotage we often look like a form of internalized avoidance. But internally, it is when you're willing to look at the highest purpose of the saboteur archetype, that voice is really saying, I need you to look at this. I need you to look at what is disrupting the feeling of internal coherence. Because an integrated person will show up as more coherent between thought, word, heart, action. So that saboteur will sometimes show up. On the surface, it looks like it's trying to pull you away, but that's just the shadow expression of the saboteur, which is like, no, don't go there. But the deeper version of the saboteur is actually saying, here are the places where you need to go to make sure that there is fuller alignment, to make sure that we are fully integrated, to make sure that your will is not split and fragmented. So it is important to ask yourself when the self-sabotaging tendencies are coming up, to ask yourself, what else is my saboteur saying here? The part of me that needs my attention is. What I need to meet and approach with more compassion, care, curiosity, and love is. The pain that this part is trying to protect me from is. Or maybe the other insight that this aspect of me wants to bring to my awareness is. Because I've also seen some situations where What appears like self-sabotage might also be your intuition that is pointing in a different direction. It is not always, you know, um, just an internalized fear. Sometimes it is your inner guidance, your deeper one, the wisest one, really wanting to work with you. And it's really interesting and important to give it the time of the day. And it's also important to pay attention to the benefits of self-sabotage, because it's not, man, it's not just avoidance of pain. It's also noticing, what do I gain? What do I gain by holding myself back? What is it for you? Go beyond, oh, I'm staying comfortable. Be a little bit more specific. Ask more from the saboteur. Ask more from the part of you that has been afraid of your brightness. What do I gain by holding myself back? Or what would I lose if I stopped sabotaging myself and fully succeeded? What would I lose? What is there for you? So I'm inviting you to really lean in deeper. So that's just what I wanted to share about self-sabotage. I can dive, like, I have entire courses on self-sabotage I often share with my membership community, the Embodied Light Project. More, the community will open up again very soon, so you can check the wait list if you really want to dive deeper into self-sabotage and all the topics related to that. But if I really start talking about self-sabotage, I can talk about it forever, 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 and all the ways to undo it within yourself. What I really want to get in right now is how you can begin to identify what is your golden shadow. Because for some people, the gift, the light might be elusive, might not be that clear. And one of the ways you can begin to get clear on what your golden shadow is, it is to become aware of the golden shadow projections. Because usually the light you've disowned, it wants to be seen. It craves to be seen. It wants to be honored. It wants to be reclaimed. It hopes to be expressed. It wants you to move from the place of existential grief for not expressing what you knew you could express to a place of like deepened aliveness where you are more in sync with what your soul came here to do. I don't think there's a way to live in full purpose without exploring the golden shadow. So what I was saying is your brightness, the one you have disowned, wants to be seen. And there's such a thing as golden shadow projections. And what we often do is we project our disowned brilliance onto people we admire, onto people we even envy. So these two mirrors are potent ones: the mirror of admiration, the mirror of envy. And the mirror of admiration is often like, we see somebody in the expression of their gift or in the expression of their brilliance, and we just like in a spiritual love affair with them. Not a literal love affair, but just like, wow, the way they are speaking, the way they are showing up, the way they are carrying themselves, the way they are sensual, the way they are in the body, the way they, I don't know, whatever thing they do, the way they're radiating is just speaking to you in a unique way. And it only speaks to you because, we often say you're only able to see it because you have it. And therefore, the invitation is there. What does my version of that look like? The space within me where I have the same thing is, and also to look for evidence that you have expressed a similar trait already in the past, maybe in a different scenario, in a different setup, in a different way, and maybe you expressed it in the past and it wasn't met with the degree of like nurturing you hoped for. If you really look, you will find evidence of your golden shadow. You will find evidence within you of what you admire in other people. If you really look, it's going to be there. It's going to be there, and it wants to be found. I'm inviting you to operate from that perspective. Your golden shadow wants to be found. Your repressed light wants to be expressed. There is a divine intelligence at work within your psyche that is pointing the way towards that day in and day out. And if you really wish to look, if you even hold the intention and the prayer, I wish to reconcile, and I'm willing and ready to reconcile with my repressed brightness. Just watch what happens. Watch what happens. And if you really do that sincerely, if you express it sincerely, I like to think that the heavens open. But not just the heavens, but also your psyche opens up, your shadow opens up, and there is almost like a hand emerging from your shadow saying, "Here you go." And when it says "here you go," it might not necessarily be the polished result yet. It might be the muddied gold. And are you willing to hold the gold and to take it and to refine it? Another mirror is a mirror of envy, where you get to ask yourself, you know, um, what are the people that you envy? And sometimes envy hides as judgment. And it may sound like, why does this person get to have so much space? Why does this person get to have this kind of success and I don't? Or why and why and why and why? It's often the expression of the child inside of us that is frustrated because others seem to be able to have things that you haven't been able to have with as much ease. And again, that is a mirror. So it's important that as you work with these golden shadow traits to ask yourself, what are the specific traits that I see in this person that I wish I was able to have within myself? What are these traits? What would it look like to become closer, to get closer to these traits, to reclaim them, to get intimate with them? And what are the fears that I have internalized around these traits? That's important to really check. And the reason why these traits are in the shadow is because your nervous system hasn't felt safe to express these qualities. So, for many people, if you pay attention, they experience, because your golden shadow wants to be not just seen and not just want to it you know it doesn't just need your awareness, it wants to be experienced. And for many people, you know how we experience our golden shadow? Through the movies we watch. We experience our golden shadow through the people we admire. We experience our golden shadow through the specific types of superheroes we get attracted to, or movie characters we get attracted to, through the archetypes that we resonate with. Some people experience their they get in touch with their golden shadow through the tarot cards, because maybe the archetype of the queen, or I don't know, the fool is speaking to you, or the archetype of the emperor. All these archetypes that are speaking to you in a unique way. So there's this externalized experience of your golden shadow. And it feels safer because there's a little bit of a distance there. But again, there is your higher guidance that is say it is now time to collapse the distance, to experience it within yourself, to experience the lover within yourself, to experience the expansion you crave within yourself, to experience the abundance you want within yourself, to experience the aliveness you want within yourself, to experience even the warrior you crave to become within yourself. So really pay attention. If you really pay attention, you're going to find a thread. Like, for example, a guy like me, I like one of my favorite movies of all time is Gladiator. The warriorship that Russell Crowe, the actor in there, is exuding. It's just otherworldly for me. It was just like, shit, I want some of that. And I've really learned to kind of like get in tune with that energy and to kind of to cultivate and nurture that within me, to even embrace and bring that warrior archetype in the work I do. Sometimes when you get a hit, when you post something out there and a nasty comment, and you may bring an offering to the world, it doesn't get received the way you want to, or there's a little bit of a business failure here and there. It's like, how can I engage the warrior? How can I stand up again and continue the fight? And not necessarily the fight here, but continue the mission. Because I don't necessarily want to be in that space where I'm going to war, but it's like there's a mission, there's a purpose, and the warrior is not necessarily fighting the war. The warrior is fighting for something, which is the prosperity of the land that the warrior is fighting for. So to a certain degree, allowing myself to work with that archetype has brought me closer. So in a way, you can begin to ask yourself, what are all the ways I can get closer to these archetypes, but not just externally, but also within myself? So That's a great thing to explore. And some prompts you can ask yourself to work with that is, who evokes awe, envy, admiration, maybe jealousy within me right now? The people that I love, another prompt, the people that I love to follow on social media, what they have in common is, what is that for you? And the people that I love to hate as well, or that I envy, what they have in common is, just ask yourself. You might become surprised. The golden shadow is all around you. It is all around you. It's not just within you, it's all around you. And the more you start working that way, you're going to start seeing the projections, the golden shadow projections are becoming louder and louder and louder. So, in a sense, all work it is to make expressing these traits safer into the body, to make all light safer. Because the reality is, so many people do not feel safe in the expression of their brightness. No. Actually, they get terrified by what it comes with. So many fears. A fear of humiliation, fear of alienation, fear of loss, fear of persecution, fear of like going through a death of an identity, the fear of betrayal. So many fears that get infused in the expression of your brightness. And usually, I have a signature program called Integrate, where the whole purpose is to integrate our fullness. That includes our brightness. But usually, for people to integrate the brightness, they have to actually become so intimate with these. I call them these 6 master keys: humiliation, alienation, loss, persecution, death, and also betrayal. Because when people are able to build within them not just the spiritual stamina, but the trust of like, I know how to deal with humiliation. I've been humiliated many times. And does it mean it never hurts the next time? No, not necessarily. But I know how to deal with it. I know how to deal with ridicule. And your nervous system has really embodied all these things. There's trust at that level. And because there's trust at that level, there's even bigger trust of like, therefore, I can bring forth my brightness. I can bring it forth. I can shine it to the world. Even when it feels challenging, even when it's scary, even when it's this, even when it's that. Something that is so deeply built in within ourselves, these fears. So basically, making our light safer. The expression of our light safer means building greater spiritual stamina to meet the fears that are on the polar opposite of our brightness. It means meeting fully the younger self who learned to hide and listening closely to the needs of that part of you, and rewriting what it feels like to feel safe around visibility, power, and truth, reclaiming these exiled gifts. And reclaiming these exiled gifts, that as well, it's a journey. And it's such a journey that most people we can be very impatient with that. Before the world around you can receive the medicine of your light, you gotta receive that medicine first. It's like your light wants to bring you to through the initiation. It's like even learning how to shine consciously. That itself is a journey. It's an initiator. It's an initiation. Like if I take my own example, learning how to write has been an initiation. When I go back to my early writing, man, I look at that and I cringe. I cringe. I still posted it. I still put it out there, but I still cringe. I'm like, God damn it. I can't believe I put it out there, you know? But it wants to take you through a journey. It wants to refine you. So there's a refinement, vice versa refinement. You refine your light and it processes you all at once. It's like the closer you get to the medicine wants to work through you. Like we get so eager of wanting, I want to bring my medicine into the world, but have you allowed your medicine to work its way through you? Really? Have you allowed it to work? Have you allowed your artistry to work through you? To initiate you? Have you allowed your, I don't know, whatever traits, your desire for abundance, have you allowed the desire for abundance, for example, to teach you what abundance is on a cellular level? To live abundance, and it's not just like numbers in the bank account. It's like, can you really live the frequency of abundance more fully? I mean, that's your medicine wants to work through you. So reclaiming the exiled gifts, that's part of it. It's becoming a student, a disciple of your light. That's how I like to look at it. That means there are some daily boring actions, maybe, that may be required for you to express your brightness more consistently. And are you willing to embrace that? It's almost like a school. It's a mystery school. Your light wants to take you through that kind of mystery school. So, um, there's a necessity to reconcile with the part of you that feared your bigness. So light without integration leads to collapse. It's like the perfect recipe for burnout. It burns fast, it burns quick, and it burns out. So in a way, there's a necessity to build the physical capacity, the emotional capacity, the emotional maturity to hold your light even more. And that's the work that I do with people in Integrate, which is a journey that I take people through a couple times a year. It's a 4-month journey of dissolving the fragmentation and the emotional injuries that prevent us from living, loving, and serving from an unleashed heart. Most people are not bringing their, light out there because they don't want it. It's just because they are fragmented. Fragmented because of emotional injuries, fragmented because of traumas that haven't found a way to be resolved yet. And because of that, we don't allow our brightness to come forth. And I think that is one of the most important things to be able to do. I think healing for the sake of getting rid of pain is lame. And it's also, it matters. I'm going to say that again. And this might brush some people the wrong way, but I really think that healing just for the sole purpose of getting rid of pain does not engage your soul. Because your soul deep down knows that pain is part of life. It's like you get rid of pain today, sure, yes. And, tomorrow, different version of pain might unfold. Okay? And then what? What comes after that? What comes after our kind of ancestral aversion to pain? But healing for the sake of unleashing your brightness engages your soul. And usually it will cause your soul to back your healing efforts with so much more fire, so much more light than it was available before. And that's why the work of integration, I'm so passionate about it. The most inconsistent people I've seen usually have an issue with integrating deeper fractures within themselves. They might be in touch with their brightness, and they might have potent gifts within themselves to bring to the world. But the reason why they have a hard time and they keep going through cycles of expansion, contraction, and the more unintegrated you are, the longer the contraction moments last. It's because of fragmentation, because of inner fractures. So I don't think you have to force your light. I think one of the most important things is to stop abandoning the parts of us that are scared of it. And to really address the root of the fears so that your light can become the natural expansion of you. It's what it was meant to do. And I was just talking about integrating. We have a new cohort starting on June 29th. If you are interested in Integrate, it's a very intimate community, a very intimate group. We usually have less than 10 in there. If this is a journey that calls you to not just integrate what is dark, but also to integrate your brightness, then I'm inviting you to check one of the links that we'll be putting on this video associated to Integrate. And I like to think of it as the home of the divine rebels, the ones that are no longer willing to live under the oppression of the brightness. Because sometimes, when we are living in that space where we have this love-hate relationship with our brightness, it's like, I love you, but I'm afraid of what you're going to put me through. What happens is our light feels blinding. It really does feel blinding. It really feels like it's going to rip you apart to a certain degree. And we often make that feeling wrong. And I like to say that feeling is appropriate because it needs to blow your heart open. It needs to expand your nervous system's capacity. It needs to expand your emotional capacity. It needs to a new vow, literally, a new form of devotion that is needed there. So your light is not the problem. Your light is not. The fragmentation around your brightness is. The fragmentation around your brightness is. And again, you don't have to force your light. One kind of prompt or brief somatic check-in that I want to offer you is to place one hand on your heart and to ask, what part of me still believes that shining my light is unsafe? Just check in with yourself. The part of me that still believes that shining my light is unsafe is. What part of you is that? And again, just check in. And let your breath move through you. Let your breath move through that part of you. Wherever you're sensing that in your body, just sense it. Allow your breath to go there. And if that part of you could speak, it would say. And just listen. And also ask yourself what that part of me needs from me right now is. And again, just listen and check in. Just listen and check in. And if you're really devoted to the expression of your brightness, and if you're really devoted to the journey of dissolving all shadow material that might be standing in the way of you expressing your gifts and your brightness, then Integrate might be the home for you. I'm inviting you to check that out. Again, we're accepting a very limited cohort for Integrate, and I'm inviting you to check it out. I want to say thank you so much for being a part of this journey. If you find any value in Enheartened, wherever you're listening to this, I'm inviting you to like and subscribe. I'm inviting you to leave a review. And also, I'm inviting you to join our community. I have a newsletter where I share more than just what you're receiving here, the podcast. And so that you're aware of updates of new offerings that may resonate with you, but so that you can continue being devoted on your journey of unleashing your heart in a world that sometimes may make you feel like it is not safe to do it. That's the divine rebel, to bring your open heart, even in a world that feels like it is unwelcoming of it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And I will see you soon.